All right, welcome everyone. As you join in, we're gonna give folks a minute or so and then we'll get started. Awesome. As folks join in, just for a little icebreaker, wondering if folks can throw in the chat somewhere that you either have already or are going to vacation this summer. Folks are calling it the revenge travel summer after COVID. Me personally, I'm headed to Minnesota next week for a vacation with some friends. Ooh, we've got Disney World, Dominican Republic, all warm locations. Oh, cool. Lots of international travel, national parks. Very cool to see. We've got folks from all over the place. Oh, staycation is also a good idea. Lots to explore for folks who are in DC in the summer, or if you live somewhere by the water. I wonder who on this list has traveled the farthest. We've got Kenya and Tanzania. Nowhere Philly is the best. I like that. Although being from Boston, I would have to potentially disagree. Ooh, lots of coffee in Seattle. That sounds delicious. Italy. Italy is the last place that I traveled before COVID. So I am looking to get back. Oh, another Boston expat. Love to see it. Awesome. We'll give folks another minute or so. For folks who are joining in, everyone is adding in the chat where they have gone on vacation or are planning a vacation this summer. We've had everywhere from Africa to Europe to staycations here in the US. Oh, Quebec. I was actually just there in May after my brother graduated from college in Maine, and we took a trip up to Quebec as well. It's an awesome spot. Just got back from New Mexico. We have a couple of New Mexicans on our team. Our CEO, Alex, is from New Mexico, so that is where I get all of my New Mexico recommendations. All right, we'll give one more minute. All right, we're at 2:03, so I will dive in. And as folks join, we can see if they are also going on vacations as well. So hi, everyone. We are here to discuss building a policy reputation calendar, what it is, and how to do it. We are going to spend about 30 minutes or so walking through the presentation and then have time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A as you think of it, and I will get to them when we hit the end of the presentation. So my name is Teresa Hebert, and I am the Director of Communications at Quorum. You have probably, if you're on this call, received some emails from me. So I have the privilege of working with our communications, content, and events. So if anyone after this call has ideas for future webinars, or you'd like to speak on one of our webinars, or have some events you think we should be attending, feel free to send them my way. My email is just teresa@quorum.us. So another housekeeping item is that we would love your feedback, and we want to make sure that our webinars are helpful and giving you information that helps you be better at your jobs. So for folks who stay until the end of the webinar, we'll have a quick survey, and folks who fill out that survey will be entered to win a gift card from us. So to dive into the content here, 2023 is going to be a big year for policy communications. If things go the way that a lot of pollsters are projecting, we're going to see changes in the parties in power in Congress, which means changes in committee leaders, changes in state executives, newly elected legislators. All of those changes will really impact your strategy. It means there's new power players on your issues, new officials representing your employees, new prioritization of which issues are going to be focused on in Congress or state legislatures or localities, new initiatives for your coalition to take on. And when you have advocates, that means you have to teach them all of these new things, or your stakeholders who you're communicating with. You have to bring all this to the table and teach them about what's going on. And another big need is to reintroduce your organization. Members of Congress, state legislators, those new faces are going to need to know who you are. And so we introduced the concept of a policy reputation calendar because you need to be in regular communication, not just reaching out when you need something. And this year, that's true more than ever, this coming year. So what is a policy reputation calendar? This is a structure outline that we present to give you a plan to communicate on a regular basis. Each month, you'll have a theme, a key message, a list of stakeholders, and a list of channels. And so by laying out that map throughout the year, you'll have a plan for what you're going to communicate about in that ongoing evergreen way. So first part of the template calendar is laying out each month with that theme, message, stakeholders, and channel. We'll dive into how you select those themes, those messages, those stakeholders as we go throughout the presentation, but wanted to give this as a visual for how you can think about building out this plan that for each month, you should be filling in each of these sections. We do have this in an editable template for you all that we'll send in email in follow-up to the webinar itself. So to plan your calendar, you pick your themes, you build your lists, you select your channels. So we're going to start with themes first. A theme is a topic you're going to cover throughout the month in a variety of ways. And a theme allows you to connect your issues back to more storytelling elements. For example, in January, your theme might be to introduce your members, introduce your employees, your advocates, whoever your audience is, to the new members of Congress, new state legislators, new executives. This could involve things like sharing your employees' stories, sharing the stories of your association members and their businesses, or introducing your advocates, maybe your grass tops advocates, to those legislators so that they, before they even begin considering bills, considering policy in their new roles, they have an idea of who you are so that then down the road, when you come calling, they have a face or a logo to recognize and associate. Other themes could be around holidays or things that happen during the year, such as International Women's Day in March. This could give you a reason to send out stories about the women in your organization, how your organization supports gender equality, and other things like that. They can also be kind of fun and outside the box, like the World Series in October. While your organization might not actually be related to baseball, use the World Series as a reason to talk about how your organization impacts the regions of the AL and NL teams. Sadly, as a Boston fan, it doesn't look like the Red Sox and Massachusetts will be one of those regions this year, but that's kind of the idea of giving the reason to reach out, even if it's not exactly related to a bill. Other ideas could be back to school and how your organization supports education initiatives in September. It could be Veterans Day and how your organization supports veterans or connects to issues, veterans issues. So get the kind of idea, lots of different themes here that you can choose from. There are also themes that are you can slot in at any month that are not necessarily driven by the calendar, such as a new report that you want to launch. You could give a month related to that report where you drip out highlights over the course of the weeks. You could do an issue of the month where you take one of the issues in your portfolio and spend your time on there. The idea of dedicating a month means that you don't have to get every single talking point out in one email or one Twitter campaign or whatever it may be, but it gives you the opportunity to share messages related to the same theme over time to really build up a knowledge base amongst your stakeholders on that topic. So next, once you have your theme selected, you want to think about your audiences. So not every theme necessarily fits every audience, or the way that you communicate that theme might be different with different audiences. So a couple ways that we see folks do this. First, if your stakeholders are in government, we see folks organized by issue. So they have their lists of energy legislators, of immigration legislators, whatever your issues are, and you send different messages based on which of those buckets they fall into. It might be by staff role. So you send chiefs of staff certain messages that are different from communications directors or legislative directors. It might be by region. So you send different messages to folks in the West versus the East by how the issue differs in that area. Or it might be by beginner and advanced. So you send different staffers different information based on their level of knowledge of that issue. For example, a beginner might be somebody who has agriculture in their issue portfolio, but their legislator's not on a key committee. Advanced might mean that they have it in their issue portfolio and they're on the key committee. So this is a way that you can either say, this theme I only am going to send to folks in the West because this issue really narrowly impacts that region. Or it could mean this theme impacts everyone, but I'm going to talk about it in different ways. If your audience is internal employees, there are also ways that you can segment by issue of interest. So if you poll employees on which issues within your portfolio they're most interested in, or maybe their jobs are most impacted by, it could be by their role, by their department, by their tenure. So if they're new to your organization, you might give a higher level introduction to the issues because they're learning about them for the first time from your perspective. Whereas more tenured employees may not be new to those issues, so you can dive in a little deeper. And then, oh, we got slide duplicate here, going backwards. So after we've selected our lists, we're going to move to our channels. So there are a number of different channels that you can use to get your message of that theme across. And frankly, folks are often choosing multiple of these channels. So we have email, we have site visits, Hill Days, Days at the Capitol, events, social media, op-eds, and earned media. What's important here is to think about which themes fit best with different channels. For example, if you were doing that World Series baseball regional theme, maybe you can throw an event in that district that has hot dogs and Cracker Jacks and bring folks there to see your, to have a site visit. Whereas launching a new report might be better with op-eds and earned media. So some of these channels may differ month to month. A big thing also with your channels is that the messaging should match the tone of that channel. So you want to personalize it. You don't want to copy and paste the same text in an email in your social media posts. You really want to match the way that your stakeholders are using those channels. I want to specifically highlight social media. This is a tool that we see growing with our government affairs users of Quorum and folks that we've met who are using government affairs specific Twitter accounts. We've got a couple here from Fidelity, IBM, Toyota. And the idea here is to really have a channel that's just dedicated to policy conversations on social media. The advice that I always give on how to talk about your issues on social media is to look at the way that your stakeholders are. So using social listening, social media monitoring tools, look at the hashtags that folks use, look at the length of the tweets that they're posting, and kind of match that style in your posting. We see folks using social media to share videos, share infographics. Again, using this platform in a unique way to engage their advocates where they are. We see, obviously, if you're based in DC, it's not a surprise, but also in the political space in general, Twitter is a huge channel and lots of folks are going there for their news. And so you all can insert yourselves there as well. So this is another part of the template that you can show once you've mapped out that high level, what's the theme for each month, what's the audience, then place each of those channels onto a calendar so that your team can have insight into what's going out when, who is receiving each message on which day, to make sure that your campaign is really spread throughout the month. So here you could send an introduction to the theme on the first day of the month, launch social media later that week, host a panel middle of the month, and then send follow-up throughout. So this is something that you all could fill in after you've selected your themes and fill in which kinds of activations you're going to be using. Now, this can feel like a lot. Talking about 12 themes, potentially 12 or more audiences, different channels for each of those months. That can be a big rollout if that's not something that you're doing already. So a couple different ways that you can start at a more beginner phase and build up to this. So first is just start with a monthly themed email to a master list. So instead of worrying about segmentation or multi-channel, get your message in one to everyone on a regular basis and build that muscle of sending it out regularly. If that's even too much, you could start quarterly and build that newsletter audience so folks get used to hearing from you in this way, not just when you're asking them to vote on something, to sponsor a bill, to take action on your grassroots campaign, to attend your events. really build that muscle of hearing from you. Then you could start building that segmentation in next. Again, still maybe just with email, but different emails to different audiences. And then you can gradually add in those additional channels. Social media being a really good one to go from email to social, because it can use a lot of the same content, just changing the tone a little bit. And then really the most advanced being bringing in those events and some of those in-person components. But the big question of all of this, any kind of new template or new system that you're putting together, is how do you measure it? How do you know if taking all these steps to send emails and run campaigns are having an impact? Because it's not necessarily going to be that you have, it's not like a call to action email where you can directly see how many people sent a letter to their member of Congress after they received that email. That's not really the outcome we're seeing here. So how do we measure if these efforts are impactful? We're going to map our stakeholders. And the system that we're recommending here is a tiered system. So we have 3 tiers, or three considerations for what tier someone falls in. First being, do they know our team? Do they know our issues? Do they answer our calls? So say you have a member of Congress who knows your team, but isn't necessarily familiar off the bat with what issues that you stand for. They might be a tier 3 stakeholder. Where someone who knows your team, knows your issues, and answer your calls, they're going to be a tier 1 top level stakeholder. So to get started with this measurement system, you want to map folks out. Take the status quo and figure out where that they sit in that system. Then as you're sending your calendar throughout the year, measure how folks change. Revisit that stakeholder map at the end of the year and see how many new tier 1 stakeholders do you have, how many new tier 2, how many fewer tier 3. And that can show that, look, when we engage people regularly, these are the impacts we're able to have in the level of commitment, the level of engagement with our organization from our stakeholders. So you see here in this example of made up numbers, after a year of engagement, we're able to move tier 3 reduce from 42 to 24, tier 2 from 158 to 84, but a huge jump from 53 to 145 tier 1 stakeholders. Now these numbers are made up, they're not necessarily a benchmark, but it is a way of taking some qualitative measure of how engaged are people with our organization. There's certainly different ways folks approach this. They could use a system of champions, neutral, detractors, or some other personal system to your organization, but measuring how you build that engagement over time is going to be a really impactful way to show the impact of your communications calendar that we're showing here. This same system can be used if you are engaging with advocates. So how many signed up for our advocacy network? How many, and then so that would be a tier 3. So they're in our network, but they're not necessarily engaged. Tier 2 being they took their first action. And tier 3, they're regularly relied on to take action. So again, how many new folks did you get into your network? And then how were you able to turn those from kind of beginner folks in your network to folks who you can rely on to always take action? And how does your communications help build on that? So, as you know, we're from Quorum. Quorum is a public affairs software company. We provide tools for legislative tracking, stakeholder engagement, grassroots advocacy, and political action committees. So I want to talk through quickly a few features that Quorum has that can help you implement this calendar. I will note the template that we're going to send out is helpful whether you have Quorum or not, to really organize your team's work and organize your structure for how you engage with folks. But I want to walk through 3 key features here. The first is our stakeholder profile. So this is of my hometown state rep, Patrick Kearney, but would look similar for a federal legislator, a staffer, or your own personal contacts if you use our stakeholder engagement tool. And on this profile, you can tag folks with different tag people with different fields so that you can build out that segmentation for your different audiences. So you can see here on the right in the gold box, we have an alignment setting for, is someone a champion, a neutral, or detractor? We also have priority. So it could be high priority, medium priority, low priority. For example, if someone is a high priority detractor, there's someone that's gonna be top of your list to grow into a champion, or grow neutral at least. But if someone is a low priority, but they're a champion, it'll be nice to keep in touch with them, but they're not gonna really move the needle on your issues. So all that segmentation you can assign here on this profile. You can also add someone to an issue. So if you have your issue portfolio built out in Quorum's issue management, you can tag different stakeholders to the issues that are relevant to them and send emails using those tags. And then finally, this other gold box here is an example, but it says likes Quorum, yes. This is a custom field that you can create any kind of personal internal tagging system that you want to use. So if champion neutral detractor isn't the right fit for you, you can use custom fields to set up the right system for you. And then all of this can be pulled into lists to organize your communication. Second is Quorum Outbox. Outbox is Quorum's integrated email tool where you can take those lists of organized stakeholders and send them emails through here. Outbox I use personally myself. I was sending emails this week to federal communications directors for the congressional baseball game that's coming up. And so I have gotten a lot of value from this, but you can take those lists that you built, pull them in here and send those emails. Now, this is our advanced email tool, which is really heavily designed, as you can see with logos, with HTML or buttons or things like that. We also have a more simple email tool that looks plain text. Some of the features call it here. You'll see here it says, welcome back, recipient first name. This means that you can use placeholders that when the recipient receives it, it looks personalized to them. This also up here I've flagged is set up as a template. So each month, if you know you're always going to send an email to introduce the theme, you can build your template and pull it up every month and change the text and send it out. So it's pretty easy to repeat once you've built it out that first time. Another new feature that we recently launched for Outbox is A/B testing. So you can test your senders, your subject lines, different things in the text to see what your stakeholders are most likely to engage with. And then finally, you can report on the impact with dashboards. So I talked about that stakeholder mapping system and seeing how you can grow your tier 1 stakeholders. So you could build a dashboard like this that tracks just that. So this box that I've highlighted here shows a line chart of how many stakeholders who support your issues you have grown year over year. You can see this upward trajectory shows the folks behind this reporting, which this is an example, is not real data, but they're doing a pretty good job. You can set the date range so you can change what time frame you're looking at. And what's also great about these is dashboards can be shared. So if your executive team is not a Quorum user, but you want to show them your dashboard, you can make a link that you can share just internally or with whoever you'd like to share it with to show the work that your team is doing. These are really customizable. This is just an example of what dashboards can do. Now, that is most of what I have. So I want to leave the floor open for questions. If you want to send any questions that you have. And for those asking, yes, we will be sending the slides out as well as a copy of that template. So any questions, feel free to send in. I would also love if, as folks are sending in questions, if they want to send in the chat any themes that their team maybe already uses to organize your communication, or different ways that you have used holidays or things like that to give reason to reach out to folks. So we got a question, does Quorum Outbox track open rates, et cetera, for email sent to stakeholders? Absolutely. We do track all of those things, and you can see them as after your emails are sent. Can we follow up with you to set up a few things to check for best practices? So if you're a Quorum customer, absolutely can talk to your CSM. If you want to talk strategy ideas, I would love to do that. And you can email me at teresa@quorum.us. Regarding email, can you customize the sender XYZ org? Yes, we do have customized senders. You can also A/B test your senders. So you can both send as your CEO or whatever kind of system that you'd like to use, but have replies or different things route to a member of your government affairs team or some other strategy like that. How does Quorum integrate with Salesforce? Quorum does have a Salesforce integration. That is a little bit beyond my technical knowledge of exactly what we pull through. I know we can pass information between the two systems, but I would recommend definitely getting in touch with our team to talk through your unique interests in what a stakeholder or a Salesforce integration would do. Because I know that there's a lot of personalization there in folks, how they use Salesforce. Would this be a good plan to keep in touch with partners as well? Absolutely. I have used a lot of government examples here, but I really think that this is useful for any audience who you may have things that you're asking of them, but you don't want that ask to come as a cold message. You want them to be warm to your organization and what's going on. Frankly, this is a strategy that we have used in the past at Quorum of having monthly themes of what topics that we're talking about. For example, different messages around what's happening around August recess might be different than what we send around the holidays or the end of the year or election season. So definitely something that different teams can use regardless of who your stakeholders are. We've got a lot here. Let me take a second and make sure I'm getting all the right ones here. Are there any best practices to setting up a dashboard to get the most out of the data on the back end? So one of the things from a storytelling reporting perspective on dashboards that I found valuable is to really treat it kind of like an essay where your highest, most broad information is at the top and then gets more and more narrow as you go. So here you see our most broad stakeholder breakdown is at the top, and then we get more narrow by issue, by team member as you go down. This is something our team, we have a new professional services team who is going to be really experts in helping build out your stakeholder dashboard or dashboards of any kind, if that is something that you are interested in. So a question here on strategy, suggestion for upper level management who are used to doing things on very short notice as opposed to strategic long range planning. I realize this is a people question, not a Quorum question. That is a great question. I would say that one, like getting ahead of presenting this plan early in the year to get buy-in is something that's super important. So I really recommend, especially as we're going into 2023 planning for a lot of us in the second half of the year, that to build out your themes in advance for the whole year and pitch them as a concept instead of every month being like, okay, what's next month's theme? When you do that, it's easy to get away from the plan. Obviously, you want some malleability so that as the policy landscape changes, you can make adjustments. If a big bill comes up on one of your issues and when you want to change that timing around, that certainly makes sense. But I think having a baseline so that executives know what's coming can really help get buy-in. This doesn't mean that there's never going to be a quick reactive email. It's more so that when you send those quick reactive emails, it's not the first time folks are hearing from you, that you have this baseline. So this strategy works in tandem with some of the emails you're probably already sending, your calls to action, things like that. This is more to work in parallel to that. Let's see, I have some here. How frequently is legislator info updated? So we have our legislator info is updated at different frequencies depending on the level of government. So our federal staffers, because there are fewer of them, updated on faster cadence. One feature that Quorum does have that makes our updates more accurate is that any user can report when they have found out that a staffer is leaving their role or something like that. If you get a bounce back on your email and it says, instead of this person, please reach out to so-and-so, you can put that right in Quorum. So we have thousands of users who are helping us update that information on a regular basis, along with our data partners. Best practices for smaller organizations with very few staff. That's a great question. I think that I would think about, there's a couple different ways I would approach this. I think I would either cut back on the number of channels or the number of segments that I'm using. So maybe I'm focusing on email and social and less so on events, or maybe I'm going to pick topics that are useful to my whole list and not different segments. Another thing that we have tested before is instead of monthly, doing quarterly. A month is a very short period of time for creating all the content to fill some of these campaigns. So we have certainly done it before where our themes are 2 months or 3 months rather than 1, so that we have more time to build up that content for each one. Newsletter email templates available to customize. So our team, that's something that our team can help build out. When you join with Quorum, can give tips on how to use that. So we do have some template dashboards that can get you started with some of the basics. Anyone who's asking Quorum specific questions, you absolutely can follow up with our team for more product info. I'm happy to do that. Let me make sure I'm getting to everything here. Any customization of alignment categories. That is something that is possible. So folks who have a different system or methodology for talking about how their stakeholders align to their issues that might be different than supporter, neutral, detractor, that is something that you can customize. Let's see here what else we've got. All right. It looks like we've got a lot of questions about showing different parts of Quorum. So our team will be reaching out with the resources after. Highly recommend replying to us there for some of the more specific questions, Quorum 101, any of those things. Also, if you want, if you are a current Quorum user and want help getting put in touch with folks on our customer success team, we are happy to do that. Any last questions? We've got a few more minutes. I know we've got a lot that came through, or if I missed your question, oh, I see some more. Can you add? So getting emails through Hill spam filters, that is something I know our team has expertise in. I don't want to speak out of turn for exactly how that works, but I know our team has spent a lot of time working to make sure that our emails are getting through a lot of those filter systems and form submissions and any way that folks' emails get to the Hill. So I certainly don't want to speak out of turn on exactly the technical aspects of that. But if you'd like to follow up after, I'd be happy to share more information on how we are able to use our email tools on the Hill and get our communications to the right folks. Is Quorum only US legislators? Quorum is not just US legislators. We do have an EU product, as well as about a dozen or so international countries where we track different tiers of officials. And so our list of countries is always growing. We came out with 2 or 3 new countries this week. So if you visit our website, you can find those at Quorum on Quorum International page there on the website. We also track state legislators, as well as cities and counties over our thousands of cities and counties. State level advocacy. Yes, our grassroots features absolutely work for state level advocacy. We have dozens of clients running campaigns to state legislators. In fact, I find those in my conversation some of the most impactful because they are state legislators receive so many fewer emails than a federal legislator does. So it doesn't take quite as much volume to really make an impact in their office. A federal legislator might have 8 or 10 people in their office. So if you're calling them, all those people can answer the phone. Whereas a state office who's getting flooded with phone calls from and only 1 or 2 staffers, those things stand out so much more easily. So definitely recommend grassroots campaigns at the state level to make an impact there, because the volume you need to make that impact is so much smaller. Suggestions on getting stakeholders to report back about their interactions. So we do have a feature that helps with that from a product perspective of our interaction logger that you can share with advocates who come on a Capitol Hill visit or stakeholders who are attending an event to share their feedback. As far as strategy on how to get them to do that, we have seen folks do a couple of things. On a really simple level, we've seen some folks turn it into a game or a contest where they might get cupcakes or some kind of reward for the person who logs the most interactions. If it's employees who are looking to get log them, we've seen folks use it as a talking point in performance reviews of, hey, you're not following through on this process. We've also seen folks do public scorecards, or public to their team, not to the world, where you can use Quorum spreadsheet feature to track who is logging interactions and how many. Share that with the audience, whether it's consultants or whoever you're looking to get to log those, and create kind of some pressure of, look, this is what so-and-so is doing. I want you to be following the same processes. On the grassroots level, this is a little bit adjacent, but we have had folks who create dashboards that show them and share them with their advocates of a map that shows how many calls or actions they've gotten from a certain state to almost turn it into a contest. So different motivators there, but a couple different ways folks can get stakeholders to really participate in this process. All right, I'm scrolling through to see if I've got anything else. But again, if for some reason I've missed your question, please feel free to connect with us afterwards, and our team would be happy to share more about our product or talk strategy as well. Awesome. It looks like our questions have mostly slowed down. So thank you so much for joining us all today. I would love to connect with anyone. And again, if you would like to speak on a future webinar, be interviewed for a blog, Quorum users who'd like to be on a case study, that would be something I would love to connect on. So shoot me an email, and we will be following up with resources. And thank you so much. Yes, so we are going to be having a survey coming through in follow-up. And again, whoever fills out that survey will be entered to win a gift card. So we'll give folks a minute to reply here. And for anyone who is in DC, it'll be at the congressional baseball game tomorrow. Look out for the Quorum team. We will all be there with baseball cards. All right, looks like we've got most of our answers in, and we'll follow with the winner of that raffle. Thanks so much.